Hey there Flock, I'm Mike from Epic Duck Studios and welcome to Just Paint the Base. Today I'm going to be painting a beach theme with some water in comic style directly on this flat base. Now I'm going to begin by just putting down a base coat of Zamisi Desert. This is going to take probably 2 or 3 coats because it is a thinner paint, it's a layer paint as opposed to a base color, so it's not as opaque as it could be. And that's okay, we're covering up black primer, so it's going to just take a little bit of work to do that. Look, we've got Evil Pac-Man here. Now I'm going to lay down a second coat. And we're getting very close to full coverage. It's probably going to take a third. Then I just want to go over it once to just make sure all my brush strokes are in the same direction. And we'll wait and get a third coat on that. Okay, so there the second coat is dry. I'm going to lay on a third. And I think this is actually going to take a fourth coat. You can still see just a little bit of the black through it. It's not bad, but we'll do one more coat just to be on the safe side. Right, now we're going to come in with the fourth coat here, and that's just to finish off any little bits of black primer that might be showing through. You can see up here, it's just a little bit of like a darker spot, but I'm actually going to be bringing some other colors in here to create the illusion of water, so that's okay, we can work with that. If you watched my previous beach base video, you saw I painted a bunch of sort of parallel white lines that form the crests of the ripples in the sand. Now with this particular base, because I want the emphasis to be more on some waves kind of crashing up onto the base, I'm not going to bother doing that at all. So what we're going to do here is just slowly transition the base from the Zamisi Desert to white, and then kind of transition that to blue. So I'm still going to get some plain white, in this case P3 Moro white on my palette. I'm also going to pick out a nice light blue to work with. And I think Temple Guard blue would just make a really stunning, kind of a nice turquoise beachy water. So I'm going to be using this. And the idea is that we want to create the illusion of like sort of varying depths of water from one side of the base to the other, as if there's a wave kind of rolling in. So I'm going to start with the pure Temple Guard, and I'm just going to cover just a little bit of the base. And it doesn't have to be a straight line, in fact it's probably better if it's not. Kind of give it a little bit of a wave. And we just want to make sure the Zamisi Desert is covered up with this. Then what I'm going to do is make a mid-tone. And I'm going to basically do a couple different steps. So I'm going to take a little bit of the blue and a little bit of the Zamisi Desert, roughly 50-50. And that's actually going to give us a bit of a weird green color. I'm going to work in, roughly a wave's worth of that, however you value a wave. The idea is now the water is a little thinner. You're seeing a little more of the sand through the water. And now, so we've got this more of a green. Now I'm going to bring a little bit of the turquoise back in, or the Temple Guard blue, and just kind of paint the boundary between those two colors. What I'm going to do now is take the Moro white and mix it into that color. And that's going to form my next line. And this is sort of where the wave is now crashing on the shore. So we're roughly doing 50-50 beach and wave. And again, I'm just going to take that and blend it over the existing beach there, or the existing water. We're going to have to let all that dry, because you can see it's still pretty wet, and if I try and paint over it to build up the layers, I'm just pushing the color around right now, and that's not helpful. Alright, that's relatively dry now. I'm going to work on smoothing these transitions out a little bit. So we're going to just bring in a little more of that really turquoisey white we've built up. You can see it's pretty thin. It's having a little trouble actually covering up the sand. And I'm going to just go back to mixing up, because I just ran out of it. So a little bit of the turquoise and Zamisi Desert together. The Temple Guard blue and the Zamisi Desert. Get that sort of mid-tone green. And just kind of bump the color up here a little bit. Looks like I may have accidentally picked a little bit of black up on my palette. And that's okay. We'll make do. Now those two colors, I want something between them. It's too far a jump. I brought in too much white here, so let's just put something in the middle. Whenever your transition between two colors is just too far a jump, just put something in the middle. And you know, we don't have to be smooth here. We're looking at choppy waves, or at least kind of choppy. You can bring a little bit of the temple guard back and just kind of bring that in. Just bring a more brightness to this backside here. Just a little hint more blue. Just kind of layer it all together. Feeling I'm channeling some Bob Ross here right now. Now, last thing I want to do is come in with a really, really light hint of water over the beach. So we're going to go to almost straight Zamisi Desert here. I'm just going to bring that into the lightest color we mixed up. And just bring that in adjacent. And it's almost just pure Zamisi Desert. I'm actually going to go just a little more green than that. But not by much. And then what we're going to do is make this all nice and frothy. Because right now it's it's fun, but it's a little flat. And we want to make that a little more lively. So we do that basically just with white paint. There's really nothing else we have to do now. So we're going to take a little bit of water in the white. I want to make sure it's a little bit translucent. I don't want really high points of white. I want little hints of it. And this can be, so we're kind of, obviously the water's coming in this way, so we want to have a little bit of a frothy edge. And that frothy edge is going to lead away from, the deeper water, right? So just bring that in. And it doesn't even have to connect all the way across. You can even have a little bit of it that's just out a little past the edge of the water, as if there's a really thin kind of sheet of water just kind of sliding forward over that sand. And then here we've got sort of like the edge of a wave rolling in. So we give that a little more, make it a little bit thicker. And then out here we just kind of do the same. Add a little bit here and there. Basically, you don't want it to just look really static. I don't want just a straight line. Water doesn't really do that. Every little pebble and divot in the sand and everything causes the water to become kind of turbulent and do something different. And so we can, play with that experience a little. Honestly, if you can, just go to a beach and watch the water for a bit and say you're doing homework. Say Mike told you you had to know what the water was doing. Now out here the water might be a little more calm. We can have some sort of more predictable ripples in the water. Or it might still be choppy. That's really up to you. I'm just kind of bringing a little bit of a slightly lighter blue out here and just kind of forming some ripples, as if there's a little bit of a refraction, under the water, right? And the thing is, water isn't flat. Water's got volume and its own set of light properties, and we just want to play with that light and bring a little more white into it and just sort of bring that nice underwater kind of reflection into it. Now this is much like the last beach one, until I brought that little crab onto it. Isn't exactly a comic style base. It's a flat painted base, but you could use this for just about anything. It doesn't have to be a comic style miniature by any means. So if you really want this to be comic style, if that's really, you really want to fit that theme, what you can do is bring in a little seashell, bring in some little pebbles, just kind of play with the elements around the water and leave the water more or less alone, right? You don't have to mess with the water. Don't mess with the water. I'm gonna bring a little more weight in here. I kind of want just a little more of a crest to these. Just a hint. Just like the lights just bouncing around. Even the lights having a nice day at the beach. So I've got a really nice base, but it's not really a comic style base. So the things we can do to change that are put just little bits of scenery on here, shells or rocks. You can paint a little fish in the water even, or any combination of those. So what I'm actually going to do here, I'm going to take a light gray, I'm going to use some Administratum gray, and I'm going to put a little rock in the beach. And I might bring a little bit of a darker gray into this too, we'll see. I'm actually going to put it over here where there's sort of, we're going to have the water kind of break around it. Well, we've still got the watercolors available to us. Let's play with that. So now, the thing to think about this rock is part of it's going to be under the water. So I'm going to need a bit of a darker color, but it should also be a little bit bluer. So I'm going to just paint in sort of part of the rock here. And yeah, I think in general that color was just a little too light. So I'm just going to darken the whole rock up a little. And I just got this color by just throwing a little bit of the black ink that was already on my palette into the gray I was just working with. What I'm going to do now is bring in a little bit of my lighter turquoise that I had mixed up for the waves and bring that into this new gray as well. And that's going to just form a little, sort of just the rest of the rock down here. And we don't need a lot of clarity to the shape because it's underwater. We just maybe want sort of the hint at something more, hint of a little bit of a shadow. And then we're going to go all the way back to just our nice thin white. And we're going to just add, you know, the water really churning up around it. Because it's in the way. This rock is, you know, it's giving the wave a bit of a bad day. Now we can take our black ink if we want and just create a little more, you know, a little more volume, a little more of a comic line around the rock. Maybe draw like a little bit of a face on it. Not a face like a smile, but you know, a face as in an angle to the rock. And then here, maybe just, you know, where it's underwater, just outline a little bit of it. And it's a pretty convincing rock with a little bit of a wave crashing on it. And even that's enough to just make it look a little more comic-y than it was. You know, I could take that further, I could add more rocks, I could make it a bit of a rockier beach, but I'm just going to I'm just going to bring in a little more white here. Just really play up sort of this this frothing edge. And a little more here. Just make the water look frothier. And then, like I say, we could bring in like maybe a little fish out here or something. I've got a little red on the palette just from something I did previously. So I'm going to do a tiny little red fish. But to make a red fish on this base, I'm going to bring the turquoise into the red, which gives us kind of a brown actually. Let's just, you know, and you'd only be seeing kind of the top of the fish. We don't need to do much with it. Let's put a little fin kind of sticking out. And build the color up a little bit. Let's, what we're going to do here, we're going to glaze over it. We're going to fade it back into the background. I really actually regret painting that fish right now. I'm sorry, fish. I'm sure that's insulting to you. We got two options here. I can lean into it, or I can get rid of it. Let's try leaning into it first. We got time. Gonna outline the fishy. We're gonna give him a little fin up top here. Little fishy eye. He's got his little starry fin sticking out. Actually, it's not too bad. Problem is, it just stands out. It looks like it's on top of the water, and that's the problem. So I'm going to go back to my turquoise and see what we can do with that. Just kind of tint the whole fish wavy colored. Actually, that worked out pretty well. Okay. I no longer regret this fish. And just where the water kind of rests over it, let's just paint some... Alright. Alright, fish, you've been redeemed. So, last thing to do here, as usual, is just black out the edge of the base. And for that, I'm just using the same black ink. Now, of course, it doesn't have to be black. You can literally do your base edges in whatever color you want. I like to use black because it helps them stand out from the table they're on, makes them very clearly a distinct element. So for gaming, that can be helpful. It's actually funny that if you have your bases match your gaming table too much, it's actually really easy to lose a model on a table because they actually look like they belong there too much. The bases, in a lot of ways, help models stand out so you can see them when you're gaming. You know, actually, maybe there's some tactical advantage to that, but point being, if you want to find them, a nice, well-defined base room actually adds a lot of visibility. The actual beach side is really boring, so we could just, you know, maybe just add a little texture to it. There's a couple pebbles here. Just a couple little scooches. Don't even know what they are. Doesn't matter. Maybe it's seaweed. Don't really know. There's something there. A little palm frond or something. And you could, you know, paint in rocks here. Do whatever. And there is our beach-themed, kind of mostly comic-style base. Hey, thanks for watching my video. If you enjoyed that one, please hit like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell icon so you get notifications when I post new content in the future. If you want to take your support even further, you can do so at patreon.com/epicduck. Every little bit helps me keep the lights on and the paint flowing, puts new models on the table so I can make interesting videos, and most importantly, keeps a roof over my family's head and food on the table. Honestly, Patreon is what makes doing this every single day possible. You can also catch me 6 times a week at twitch.tv/epicduckstudios. I'd really love it if you came by to watch my show sometime and clicked follow. A big thank you to everyone who has supported my stuff, both past and present, over the years. It's been a wild ride, and I couldn't do this without the fans and all of the wonderful flockers out there. The hobby community is just an amazing group of people, and you make this worth doing. So let's keep doing this together for years to come. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, do something epic.